Welcome back, everybody, to your daily update on the state of Corel Galen, and this is the last one. Yes, I've finished Fall of Light and until Walk in Shadow comes out. Hopefully next year. I have no idea. This will be it. So yeah, we'll need to figure out what to do with with our lives next week. But until then, I want to talk about it because holy shit, was that unending. So yeah, let's do that, shall we? Well, cheers. So yeah, also if I still have like oil stains somewhere, it's because I just had to build up a new elliptical drainer because I broke my old one. The new one arrived today, and being a very manly man, I obviously ignored the manual. Well, I also couldn't read it, but I built the thing up more or less by intuition. I hope it will survive. I'll keep you posted on that one if it arrives, when things happen. But yeah, apart from that, let's go into it. Two chapters, one battle, one aftermath, and the fall of light, so to speak. Um, what can I say? Um, I feel like the ending to this book was one of the most satisfying endings I've seen Steven Erikson pull off in any book so far. Um, he manages to bring across some of the main points of his writing in a very succinct way, almost clearer than in The God Is Not Willing, which obviously was very on the nose with some of its themes. Uh, you know, um, so let's look at some of those things. We have a battle. How does it work out? How does that battle actually play out? And the main thing there is we don't see it, which makes a lot of sense. And I'll talk about why it makes a lot of sense in a minute. So we don't see the main action, which is may feel odd for some people. I don't know. For me, it made a lot of sense. That being, and we look at the beginning of the novel, right? We have that opening about the glory of war and poets that talk about war and how terrible that is from Galan's voice. And this is obviously Galan telling a story, right? At least in the narrative, in that framing narrative. So we have that. So it makes sense that he doesn't want to show us that like explicit violence. On the second level, that obviously is the same with fantasy literature. A lot of fantasy literature, especially like newer fantasy literature, of the sometimes grimdark persuasion, or generally your edgier or more modern, grittier fantasy from like your Joe Abercrombie's and what have you, are very much about explicit and like very graphic details for combat. Obviously, Steven Erikson has done that a lot himself. In Malazan Book of the Fallen, even here in some parts. So we know that he's capable of telling that, but he's kind of subverting that expectation of having a large scale battle described in all kinds of detail, with all the adrenaline pumping and all of that. And it's exactly that thing that he's kind of deconstructing there by not giving us that and showing us how, in a way, childish it is to expect a like bloody portrayal of violence, and how childish that is in a way. But he shows us that impromptu war game that Kalatastane and Rennick are not even really playing on the side of the road on the way to the Valley of Tarns. So what I'm trying to say here is, it makes perfect sense to do it that way, to abstract it that thus far, show the whole tragedy of the thing, and the ridiculousness of it, um, by portraying it as this kind of game. Obviously, that's a metaphor that we've seen before. The idea of like chess player or what have you. We've seen that before, but the way it is done here with those two, one of them being a child, the other one being a man who has partly lost his mind already, or as he said before, he will be a child again, right? Makes it even clearer how demonic that is. It also reinforces that idea that we've seen in the Malazan, not in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but very much here in the Carcanas trilogy so far. This being the idea of that theme of growing up, or of childlike naivete, which can also be childlike cruelty, and we see that here as well when we look at like the sheer stupidity and wanton cruelty that has led to this war or this battle, and this obviously you know is, I feel, a very powerful way to portray that battle. Yeah. Now, the events of the battle itself are basically all that we expect before, and this is, I feel, the other part of it. It's like nothing in this battle is actually surprising or whatever. It's like Draconis shows up, Rake does the honorable thing. The Highborn do the expected and dishonorable thing. The Legion advances and kills a lot of people, and that's it. So yeah, you don't need to show that in battle because it's pretty much preordained already in a way. We obviously have like that expected that thing of the magic duel between Endes Celan and Cedapul on the one hand, and Honral on the other side, which shows that at this point they're still like pretty evenly matched. I mean, Honral is very powerful, but yeah, the sorcery is kind of negated on both sides, so we have to resort to, you know, hitting each other with rocks, more or less. Well, it's not rocks, but you know what I mean. So yeah, there's that. What else though is interesting about it? Like the main themes I feel are kind of explored at the end in one, that conversation between, this is like a very important one, I can probably like ramble for hours about it. The conversation between the High Priestess Emma Lanier, I still have problems with her name. Anyway, the High Priestess talking to Mother Dark, because Mother Dark is actually talking to her. And that one is the really important conversation about what gods can do, what godhood means, or what godhood can mean. I feel that's like, I mean, that's like the interesting thing with someone like Mother Dark, possibly also Father Light, although their things are a bit different. And that problem is, the difference there is that Mother Dark has come to godhood, I guess, through the darks, like through like the hard way, compared to the Azathanai. I mean, yes, she's been given power by Draconis, but she was a normal Taist woman before, probably a very powerful one, but still a Taist woman that has, dare I say, ascended. I'm not quite sure if this is already like what you might call ascension later on, or ascendancy, but she certainly has done something, I guess, that, say, the Azathanai have never done. She's known about consequences and responsibilities and stuff like that that are entailed in us as humans or Taist growing up. And she knows about these things before she came into her godlike powers, whereas most of the Taist, most of the Azathanai that play at being gods, are very much restrained, you know, not restrained, they're exactly the opposite. They're very much, they they don't care about, like, they're beyond good and evil in a lot of ways, or beyond morality in a lot of ways. I mean, they just don't care about people that much, is what I'm trying to say here. So she is closer to what you might actually call a goddess, or any form of deity, because, or what deities should be, because she is, yeah, she actually knows about these responsibilities. Now, the dark side is that then, on the other hand, is like, are we actually worth a goddess? Or don't we maybe all just suck? And the answer is yes, we do. Or at least the dice do. I mean, like, we humans aren't any better. And there's like a very powerful plea in there that's like, that you don't need an actual goddess or like an actual religion, because like the fundamental things of human decency should be self-apparent to anyone. And Mother Dark puts it like very like distinctly when she says like, the basis is harm no one, harm nothing that can feel. Don't harm the world out there with all its myriad life forms. Don't do that. And that's you don't need a god to tell you that. You know that in your heart. And yes, most of us should actually know that in our hearts. We often don't act like it, and this is obviously the whole like dilemma of civilization that we have here. That it, in like building rules that over time are will always be used, like will always be twisted to serve the few and not everyone, and make exceptions and so forth. Through that, we consciously, or more or less consciously, or rationally, distance ourselves from that fundamental truth that we should not harm anyone or anything that can feel, and that includes the entire world out there. I guess we're still allowed to harm rocks, but even with trees, it's like, why would you do that? And this is the other part there, and we've seen that before in all the discussions of hunting and so forth. That is excluded. Killing animals to eat them, hunting, if that's the only way you can get food, is totally fine. Cutting down trees to build a fire so you don't freeze in winter is perfectly fine. It's the wanton destruction that is the problem that comes with a civilization, with the way we use our rational minds to make the world new in our like image, or in like the way we want it. That's where we leave the path of human decency. So that's one of the most powerful parts I've seen in like, or like most direct ways Steven Erikson has ever addressed us readers with that plea for human decency. That is at the core of the Malazan Book of the Fallen and the Carcanos trilogies. Like, we have that potential always. We always have that potential. We'll always have that potential, and the power and possibility to actually remember that fact and consciously decide to actually do that, no matter what the rules of the world out there, what all those arguments of necessity, of honor, what have you there, all that shit. No matter what those things say, we as human beings can always decide to do that. To And that is what gives us, or can give us, dignity, right? That's the argument there. Is like, we have dignity, and we often lose it through our own through our own decisions, when we give in to the world, the civilization, the societies we've built, when we give in to them and let them tell us what is right and what is wrong, what is decent and what is not decent. And even though our intuition might say something different, that's the big one there. The other one obviously is love. We're going to talk about love more in a second. But before we go there, we need to talk about the second way the battle is portrayed, apart from like the battle, like the war game that Rennick and Kalatas Tain are playing. The second one is obviously through the visage of the historian Rais Harat, when he looks at the tapestry of the older battle. And this is like the really brutal part there, right? He sees that old tapestry of some older episode or epoch of Thais history and realizes that it depicts an event that is very much like the events currently happening or just that have just happened at the Battle of the Valley of Tarns. May have even happened in the same valley, because we've heard that there is a weird Thais history there already. And now we come to something that is sad and has been part of human philosophy and historiography for a long time. That being the idea that we never learn from our mistakes. History, and that being one of the reasons why some people write history. You have that with your Thucydides, who starts his Peloponnesian Wars with that claim that he's writing this down. So once humanity has, once future societies reach that point of civil war that will undoubtedly come, because it is in human nature, so he thinks, to be that way, that maybe people will actually learn from it and not repeat their mistakes. You know, they always do, though, and this is like, I mean, this is already built in with Thucydides' argument, right? He's like, yeah, this will happen again. Just so you know, this is how it went in my time. Maybe you can learn, but I'm doubtful. Is kind of what is behind that, which then obviously gets picked up by all kinds of later people. If it may be your Thomas Hobbes, or all kinds of, like, the idea that we are doomed to repeat our mistakes as societies is has been a large part of, like, a part of, like, philosophy of history forever. Now, what we see here as well, and this is this is the truly shattering part, is that we as humans tend to repeat our own mistakes as well. We are really not good at learning from our mistakes, are we? Whether it is when it comes to relationships, falling for the same kind of troubling relationship. It takes a long time for, I guess, for a lot of us. So my experience in general is like, if you are one of those people who tend to end up in I don't want to say toxic relationships, but in, say, strained relationships, chances are you will go into that again and again and again, unless you actually consciously manage to change your behavior. And well, with someone like Draconis, who is an Azathanai, and is, like, for all purposes, immortal, for someone like that, it is interesting to see, because if he repeats his personal mistakes and never learns from them, those may just become the mistakes of an entire society, that society repeats again and again, because he's that kind of godlike being in a way. So yeah, we have that, and that's like, truly shattering. But what I wanted to look at is the way that we have Rais Harat imagining how the battle would be, and this is the other part. There's, like, battles are told to us by poets and by historians, and we look at, like, in both cases we look at how people other people try to tell us something through the way they portray a specific battle, which parts they focus on. You have, like, with Rais Harat, you have this, like, you focus just on Draconis and Anomander having their, like, talk there, and, like, even Kolaris is just, like, reduced to someone in the background, because that doesn't matter. It's like you reduce whole companies of people, or all individuals, you just reduce them, at least in a certain kind of historiography, you just reduce them to, like, this this regiment fought with extreme with exceptional courage, and that's all you put in there. You don't, which is, like, dehumanizing to the extreme. But that's just, like, how we, if we are the kind of people who write that kind of history, how we make the absolutely unimaginable manageable, because we put it down into specific forms that we as writers and readers are used to peruse, and we just like put away and deal with in our own ways then. So there we are. Draconis does the things he does out of love. He's not very good at understanding love, but frankly, most of us are not. Um, and this, on the other hand, makes it so very, very difficult, right? Because like he's a fool, but the world needs fools. It's that weird option, like, can Draconis change? Could Draconis change and not repeat his mistakes and still be Draconis, be the person that he is, a person that believes in personal integrity and in love? Because this is the other ways, like, you can try to ignore your emotions, you can try to ignore love, and use your brain, your rational thoughts to cage your love and other emotions. You can do that, but are you still the same person? And is that not like another crime to actually cage something like love? Well, I guess we'll see what happens with Draconis. I mean, we kind of know where he ends up, but until then, we don't know, because he's gone. At least, you know, some others get like their redemption in a way. Most powerfully, definitely Rennek, who doesn't kill anyone, but feels that he has done what he set out, and is now trying to do the actual right thing, which is heal people, or make things as good as possible and not break more things. We also have the meeting between Sanderlath and Orphantal and Corlat, and Orphantal being much wiser than his mother gives him credit for, and dealing with all of that in a way. It's still heartbreaking to see what happened to Sanderlath, and how Sanderlath has like became the person that she is, which is a very broken person indeed at this point. I still wonder how she actually dies and all of that stuff, but I guess we'll have to wait for Walk in Shadow to find out. Um, yeah, but yeah, you know, we see there people like Rennek and Orphantal have like an intuitive grasp of what is right and what is wrong, what is the decent thing to do, and they do it because they have not yet been like fully made over by the constraints of civilization, society. The idea, and it's in there as a quote, like sometimes the child can do something, can do things better than a man. It's like, yeah, it's there because they listen to their hearts and listen to that inner like understanding of what it means to be a decent human being. Um, so I guess it's time to look at the end, shall we? Um, the marriage between Father Light, which is Vathal Urisander, and Mother Doric, is as perfunctory as possible. It's made clear that this is just like a symbol and nothing more. Um, Urisander does the thing that is important. He makes Osurk his heir, and then Rena kills him. And it's important to understand why she does that, I feel. Because as we learned from the beginning, Urisander is a person with an understanding of morality, of good and evil, of right and wrong, of all these things, with a vision of justice and everything like that. But he didn't do anything. And this is why he has to die. He knows about all these things and he hasn't changed anything. He hasn't actually tried to make Osurk a better person. Osurk, at least Rena believes, can be forgiven for what he's done because of probably also what his father did to him. But for Rhysandra, there is nothing more but to die. Which obviously makes a lot of things very interesting. Does Osurk now become Father Light? Does Hunral try? We don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting to find out. We also need to talk quickly, I guess, about the Hust Legion and what became of them. The idea that they are like unable to lie, that they are unable to lie to themselves. Yeah, that they stood, but they didn't want to kill. They just wanted to defend because they, it's very difficult to do something like that, and if you're unable to construct any kind of argument why this was necessary. I feel this is the other part, is like killing, not in self-defense, will always require some kind of artificial reasoning to justify, and if you strip that away, then yeah, you don't want to kill anyone. Yeah, we see that. We also see Taurus Redon being unable, being so far gone in her self-pity and drunkenness. We need to talk about, at some point, I guess we really just need to have us a talk about alcoholism in the writings of Steven Erikson. Well, maybe not today. So, overall, I feel, yeah, this was quite the ending for a book. I would say it was probably the most impactful book Steven Erikson I've read by Steven Erikson, or it's the one that has had like probably some of the biggest impact on me. Compared, I mean, obviously, The Crippled God, when I read it the first time, totally floored me, but I had like already gone through like 10 books, so that has like a whole other weight behind it. But just like a single book, this one, holy shit. I'm really, really, really looking forward to reading Walking Shadows. I really hope it comes out very soon, because this is some of the best writing I've seen Steven Erikson do. Yeah, I might do like a full-on like Carcanas, I don't want to call it review, but whatever video in the coming days. Don't know. And I'll still need to figure out what to do on Monday. If you guys have any like wishes, ideas, suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just come up with something, I guess. Yeah, until then, I'll talk to you tomorrow about something and something else on Sunday. I have ideas and shit. Have a great weekend. Cheers.